Hey everybody, welcome in on today's show. We've got a plate full. We're going to probably talk a little bit about the microchip issue and how it's caused a little bit of a production halt of a few vehicles out there. Want to get into a little bit of that. What else we got, Keith?
I feel like we've had that conversation before.
I hate to say I told you so.
Oops.
Yeah. Okay.
For sure.
And we've got confirmation on the Nissan 400Z in terms of production models and how those are going to look. We'll give you some info on that.
And we're going to talk a little bit about the recent Barrett-Jackson auction, which everybody is very aware of who those guys are. A couple of vehicles that went for quite a bit of money, to my surprise. So,
all right, Nissan. Some subprime lending, kind of interesting, possibly sketchy. Have we not learned anything from 2008? Kind of, yeah.
Buyer beware. Buyer beware.
They're highly motivated to sell cars right now. Let's leave it at that, and then you'll have to listen to the show to find out the details.
Absolutely. And then looks like Rivian has taken some of our recommendations in the past where we've talked about what they can do to make a bigger impact in their listing. It looks like Rivian has partnered with an outdoors outfitter supplier in the overland industry, and we'll touch a little bit on that. All that coming up on today's show right after this. Welcome to the podcast. I am Jay, and that is my co-host, Keith, over there. How are you doing today, Keith?
What's up, man?
Aight.
Hey, everybody.
Aight then. Did you, hey, so did you see the dirt track race?
No, I didn't. You messaged me about that. So for those of you that don't know what Jay's talking about, on a previous episode of the podcast, we talked about NASCAR and the Bristol Speedway going dirt for dirt track races and hauling in massive amounts of dirt. And it was full-blown chaos at my house when that message came on.
You think it was full-blown chaos at your house? You should have seen it at Bristol, man.
So... yeah, and by the way, for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, go to our website at partscounterguru.com, hit the podcast tab at near the top there. I think it's kind of on the left side. And you can, whatever platform you prefer, wherever fine podcasts are given away for free, as I like to say, you can subscribe to ours, and we covered that in a previous podcast. Dangle NASCAR.
Dangle NASCAR. It's out there. So, go check it out. It was fun, but it was interesting to watch the race. Of course, it got rained out.
How do you? I guess it'd get too muddy, right?
Yeah, well, it got too muddy, but it helped it out a little bit, but not as enough. They had problems with chunks of this red clay coming up and it being a problem.
Well,
and it was.
As you know, when I sent you pictures, there was a lot of rain. Like, it was almost near 2010 Nashville flood levels.
I heard that Nashville it was like the fourth rainiest 48-hour period.
It was bad, man. And
on record, yeah.
And we got some more coming overnight. But, I was on an island, and I don't live on an island, but I did over the weekend.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe you'll for our viewers who like to watch some of our video segments, maybe you'll throw in
I might. Never know. I might throw in some footage of
here, or something. I don't know. Anyway, well, we'll see. Anyway, but glad you guys are okay. And I recall, as I lived back in the 2010 floods, I was at the epicenter of those floods. We got nearly 18 inches of rain within a 24-hour period. That was pretty incredible. I've never seen so much rain in my life. Biblical
Yeah, so I could actually pull up my weather station and tell you how much. While I'm doing that, tell me about this dirt. Tell everybody about this dirt track thing. So it obviously they had a lot of rain. They had to postpone, but then
they had a lot of rain. Had to postpone it, and they rescheduled it for the following Monday. And they pulled it off. It was fun to watch. I was working and watching. But every time I would look up, there was some sort of spin out, wreck, somebody getting into somebody else, and I don't know how those poor guys could see a thing with all of the dirt and clay all over the windshields. But it was exciting to watch. I hope that they do make this a permanent race, because I think obviously as the more we do these types of races, the better they get at them. And not only just the drivers getting used to those conditions, but the track ownership, their teams coming in and preparing that surface for those drivers to make it a really, really good, safe, fun race to watch. So I'm sure there was some hot heads yesterday, some frustration, but they did get it pulled off. And again, it's just NASCAR trying some new things. And dude, if I watched that every weekend, I would watch it every weekend.
Yeah, they're fun. Dirt tracks are
fun. It was pretty fun
Yeah.
to watch. So.
And by the way, anyway, my weather station is only showing about 5 inches, which is still a lot to happen in a 24-hour period. But
yeah, I think it was
I've
like
got a lot of trees and stuff around, so it didn't.
Yeah, and east of you, I think, got somewhere in the 8 to 9 inches of rain totals.
Well,
I know the area very well. There's a lot of small creeks and tributaries.
Right, I live close to one. So funny little side story, everybody. They called school off early in the afternoon. They sent everybody home a couple hours early because it was lots of hail and tornadoes in this thing, and so they better safe than sorry. Mm-hmm. Well, apparently it like went around us, like it went to the south of us or the north of us or both, but there's very little of anything happened right where I live. Okay, which is great. And so I decided the sun's out, and I'm like, I'm going for a run, man. It's been raining all day. I'm going for a run. And then, sure enough, about 15 minutes later, I get this, like, did you message me? You messaged me first. You're like, dude, you're about to get hammered right now.
Right. And you're like, nah, I got the all clear, man. My team says it's okay to be out, man.
My family's watching the news. They're like, it missed us. We're good, And Jay's like, one of us called the other, and he's like, no, I'm just telling you, you're in the middle of it right now.
You need to get home, man. It's a bad deal.
So I turned around and sprinted home, and I got just
soaked.
Yeah, it was just bucketfuls, and it was kind of comical. But
unfortunately, that storm left a really, really devastating track down in Alabama and northern Georgia, and sadly, people lost their lives. And that is one part of living in the Southeast that I do not miss is those tornadoes, man.
Right.
I mean, I've ridden them out quite a bit. Those severe storms
it's
are
scary.
not fun to be with, man, and I do not miss it at all. But I do miss Tennessee to some degree. There are certain things about it that I do miss.
I miss. Oh no, we don't mean what it used to. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get into some of this meat and potatoes we talked about in the opener. Live from the news desk. Right. So we got a little chip problem, and we ain't talking chips and salsa. And we got a podcast recently about this thing.
Yeah,
I hate to say I told you so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, by the way, Jay, how's your recording doing? Doing all right?
It's doing great.
All right.
It's doing good now, yeah.
So, we had a little technical difficulty in the studio, but we're past that, I think. So,
for
those of you that don't know, yeah? You good?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so, yeah.
You need a life preserver, just let me know. Send up a signal.
Oh, by the way, this shirt, I got to give a shout out to my mother-in-law and father-in-law, thanking them for this shirt, which, by the way, guys, if you're interested in it, you can buy this on Amazon. You can go right to our website, partscounterguru.com, and click on the Amazon banner up top, or we'll put a link mentioned on the podcast for this shirt.
Yeah, that's
pretty cool. It says car guy. It's a noun, like a regular guy, only cooler. yeah, that's me, man. No, but they just, as a show of appreciation to me, they wanted to.
Yeah, you got to be careful where you wear that, though. You get people coming up to you asking if you'll
right.
help them,
It's like a bullseye, man. Yeah.
Change your brake pads out or whatever. Yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, back to this chip thing. Yeah, right. we discussed this. Podcast.
I hate to say I told you so.
Sorry, never gets old, man.
Jeeps and Chip Odyssey, I think it was. Yep. You can go to partscounterguru.com and find that audio podcast.
There's a podcast tab near the top. Click on that. Wherever fine podcasts are given away for free, you will find ours. There's links to all the major platforms, whether it's Apple and Google, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever. We're on all of them.
Just subscribe.
Yeah, that one was, I think, called Jeeps and Chips or something like that. But
Jeeps and Chips Odyssey, yeah.
So this is affecting the Camaro, right? The Chevy Camaro.
It is, man. GM has confirmed that its Lansing Grand River assembly plant will be idled beginning first of the month or end of the month through the month of April, if not longer. And the reason is because they don't have enough semiconductor chips to produce the fast-moving vehicles, the better-selling vehicles, so they've got to cut bait somewhere. And the Camaro has not been the hottest-selling model for GM over the last couple of years like they had anticipated it would be.
Yeah.
So
I think it all has to do with profit margins, and so you slow down production on the vehicles that do not have aren't bringing in. You know, who's bringing in the most money? Well, we're not going to stop that one.
Right. It's using its existing semiconductor chip supply for highly profitable vehicles, like Keith just said.
I hate to say I told you so.
I swear to God, I didn't read that before.
It's for extremely popular vehicles, mainly trucks and the SUVs. But they not only cut the Camaro, but they cut the Malibu, the Cadillac CT4 and CT5, which is coming up for 2022.
Yeah,
which that
they're
kind
still
of
making
makes
the Malibu, really.
Yeah, they are, and you know that totally makes sense to me. I mean, especially with the CT4, CT5. Which, by the way, man, honestly, if I'm going to drop that kind of money on a performance vehicle, it's not going to be a Cadillac, man. I get it. It's basically, Camaro on steroids, Corvette, but they are fast, man.
You know who would take issue with you? And I'm going to tell you that GM has done a very good job.
Oh, I know they have.
Generational perspective of marketing to these younger people. Yeah. Sideshot loves Cadillacs. Loves them.
Well, they do a lot of good things with those things, but they're very expensive. They're very expensive. But it's they're not really. It's not a badge of sport. In other words, it's not a Camaro.
He'll throw
not a
all
Corvette.
the data at you. He'll go.
Oh, I know. He's not
high resale value. It's you should. And he does this to me all the time. He'll go, Dad, you should really give him another look. Like, here's what we have become, Jay. We have become like our dads, that it's like you get married to that brand loyalty and you're like, that stuff's crap. I mean, you changed my mind about Hyundai. I initially was kind of like, kind of poo-pooed Hyundai. But see, my experience to them was in their early days here in the United States.
And there's still people out there that have that, sense that they still think that they are junk.
Apple's the same. Like, Apple just keeps selling iPhones because people recognize Apple from the reputation it had in the Steve Jobs era. And they have been plagued with a lot more quality issues since then than they used to.
So in other words, Apple's now Kia?
I don't know. I mean, my point is that whole brand loyalty, which we've covered many times, can be a dangerous thing, right? Like,
yeah, definitely.
We need to get into Cadillac and go. You know
what? Let's do this. Let's commit to having a segment on the Cadillac overall, because
Cadillac's making clothing. Oh, you mean I got you. Okay.
Yeah. Well, if they do, I'll take a pair. But anyway, I mean they're dabbling into electrification, obviously being a GM family member.
Right.
They're dabbling into the sports car side of it, which they have been for a while. I mean, dude, when that wagon they did that has the 6-liter, I mean, it just blows my mind how fast they are and they sound just awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, they're tuned very well, and I know it's a very well built machine, but I just when I think of Cadillac, I just don't think of sports car. But they do make some really, really viable options for people who want to have luxury and sport at the same time. It's kind of, that's where they're at. You know, they're in that category of not exotic, but kind of inching up.
They have to survive if they're, the old reputation of being an old man's luxury car. I mean, that's not going to do. The same thing happened to Jaguar. It was kind of like, wood paneling everywhere, and and the gentleman's steed and all that, and I would buy one now. Like, they're not. Right. That's not who they are today at all. So This is, and we'll get into this more a little bit later on the program, but we're on very, very thin ice right now in terms of our nation's economic stability. Mm-hmm. And I've said this many times for those of you that are fans of the show and that are subscribers. First of all, thank you. But you know what I'm about to say. As the automotive industry goes historically here in the United States, as their economy goes, so does the nation's economy. So if the automotive industry is not doing well, we tend to have economic hardship elsewhere in the country. They use car sales as a predictor.
Absolutely.
If you can't make the cars, you can't sell the cars, right? So this is we're teetering here. This is dangerous. Ironically, it's not because people don't want to buy them. I mean, you can't get a Corvette right now, but they can't make them, right?
Toyota, in the meantime, Keith, they're one of the automakers that has a surplus of semiconductors sitting around, and they learned from their devastating tsunami that took the nuclear plant out. Their infrastructure was completely, and their supply chain was completely devastated. So they learned a lot. So they were not going to let their themselves be caught with their pants down, if you will. And Toyota's actually posted, proud earnings. Things are looking good for Toyota so far. Their production has not slowed. They're moving right along. But one thing that concerns me about this, and I hate, for you people that are Camaro lovers.
By the way, this segment brought to you by Toyota. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But, if you're a Camaro lover, you might be a little concerned here because, as with anything, when you start having issues, something has to go away. And Camaro sales have been down. We know the direction that GM is headed into the electrification of all their vehicles by 2035. They've committed to that. Now, that remains to be seen as to whether or not that'll come through, but they are certainly committed to that. And, could it be that, maybe there'll be a redesign of this Camaro and it comes out as an EV? It's not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, Ford just did it with the Mustang. So just keep that, in the back of your mind. And we're also talking, I mean, there's news from GM that, will it happen? Don't know, but it's also possible that you might see the Corvette Stingray become an SUV and an electric vehicle as well. So, there's a lot going into this. It could be an opportunity for GM to go ahead and start cutting that bait to get closer and closer to that commitment to all electric vehicles, like I said.
And I know it's a sports car. Car sales in general, sedans. Now, the Camaro's a two-door, but they have not sold as well as crossovers, SUVs, trucks in the past 3 or 4 years. A lot of car manufacturers, GM is no exception, have announced, hey, we're reducing our lineup in terms of passenger cars. That's sort of why, I joked, are they still making the Malibu? But I was kind of serious. Like I didn't realize they still had that car in their lineup. So, again, it's just kind of interesting, but makes me a little nervous here, just because this could cause problems on it could ripple through the economy. So
it will. It definitely will. We'll see what happens, and like Keith said, we'll get into a little bit more that will kind of hint to some issues that may be going on. Anyway, so guess what was recently spotted, Keith? Finally.
One of those zebras with the reverse stripes, white on black?
Absolutely. No, actually it was silver, all silver. Versus the yellow. But anyway, zebra. Anyway, yeah. So we got our first glimpse recently at what it looks like to be a couple of Nissan 400Z production vehicles coming into LA. There was someone at one of the receiving facilities that got into it and showed us some of the interior, pointed out the fact that it was some of the changes. If you look at this thing, it is definitely true to the proto that we saw when they initially revealed this thing. And I think we said then that if they do that with this and they don't change it that much, if this is what it looks like, man, I'm on board.
So I watched the videos. I had a couple things jumped out at me here. Number one, I do kind of wonder the legitimacy of. I mean, he says he's in California. He kind of sounded like he was in California. It looked like the car came in, shipped. I don't know if that car was intended for a U.S. market, though. I mean, if you go to Nissan's website right now, they're still listing the 370Z in their sports, that one in the GTR, okay? And why would you start shipping to dealers before your corporate website lists the vehicle for sale?
This could be someone within the Nissan organization getting the vehicle first here in the States. As we well know, there's a huge headquarters.
Right, which is to my point of, it's not necessarily intended for the U.S. market to sell. But
they did point out, our friends over at Road and Track pointed out that the headlights in the rear bumper have been given reflectors to conform to U.S. regulations. Distance sensors have been added, and a lip spoiler has also been attached to the hatch. So it does appear like it is built for the U.S. market. Now, is this a disguise? I don't see why it would be. I mean, they said that they would be in production and you would be seeing these things on the showroom floor hopefully by midsummer.
See, I think it's a show car for going in, it's for a commercial or a video shoot or, because you got to remember it takes time for them to as we know, production takes time. Like it takes 2 to 3 times as long as the actual filming process itself. So I don't know, and this is petty, but the one thing that you and I talked about and we said, man, I hope they do this because it would be just awesome and it probably wouldn't add a ton of cost to the vehicle, is the raised white lettering on the tires that said Z.
I would be all over that.
They're not on this.
They're not on it. I know it. And that was just, and I said to you that, that's a good marketing, be a really good marketing tool. But who knows when they get these things up on their websites or, and you can the configurators, who knows, that may be an option for you to upgrade to those specific tires. I don't know. I hope so. I hope they do it that right. And it would be, I think it would be cool, very cool.
They tend to not mess around a lot with options for tires on the Z car. You kind of just get the best. Like they don't typically, in years past anyway, they haven't offered a lot of variations there. Mm-hmm. They famously, they're different size wheels in the front than they are in the back.
Yeah.
We'll see if that continues, but
right.
So you can't rotate them, but they don't typically give you a lower end option because that's a performance car and it really does need, and you're not going to get, I mean, they're not, you might get 10,000 miles out of some of these tires and it's time to buy new ones.
Right. But what my point is this, is that to the true enthusiast of a Z,
yeah,
someone who loves them like you do, like I have several friends of mine that love the thing. It's not necessarily a downgraded tire. It's just an option to upgrade to a white letter version. Because
I see what you're saying. So it'd be like the same tire, but it'd be like a custom
But it
version.
just have a white letter version, right? Just like the car comes in yellow or black or gray. I mean, whatever.
Call it an
option. So I think that it's just an option. And again, we won't. That remains to be seen until we see the configurator online, which probably is going to be a really small configurator. There's not going to be a whole lot of options. Typically the Z's are what they are. Mm-hmm. You're going to have the higher horsepower version versus the standard, and you might have automatic versus
right, which
manual.
we already know. Yeah,
right. So
right.
we know the answers there. So yeah. Anyway, it's maybe it's a tease. We don't know, and maybe you're right that it's intended for show purposes only. But it doesn't make sense to me that if it is a show car, to put it out there and it not be what the production vehicle is going to be. So I have to kind of
or it's going to be used in a movie or a commercial footage or something, and they needed to slate that so that, by the time they announce it, they've got a commercial to go with it or something like that.
Right, exactly. And again, and to that point, you're right that this may not be what that final production vehicle will look like, because there's a lot of customization that goes on specifically for advertising and marketing. And so you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. So, but my point is that it's here in the U.S. They say it came into L.A. and there were two of them. And
typically that's your port of arrival, port of entry.
Right. That's exactly port of entry
manufacturer.
Yep. You got it. It's either coming into L.A., Seattle, or you might get them into New York or somewhere like that. I think even like places like Savannah, Georgia is getting vehicles coming in there too. They have to have areas within the U.S. that make sense, and then plus gets people out of a pickle. Like, for example, the way back in the, I don't know, like say 2012, 13-ish, somewhere around in there, when there was a bunch of strikes in L.A., and so all the cargo ships were just kind of sitting out there waiting to get in, and a lot of them just kind of went around the horn and came into, other ports, like New York and Savannah and those areas. So anyway, so it's something to hang on to, guys. If you're a Z fan, keep on the lookout, man. If you know of anything factually, or you've seen anything that you're aware of, why don't you reach out to us on partskinoguru.com. We have a contact us or a leave a comment in the comment section there.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll put your name out there, and mention your name and ask the question and see if we can't get the answer, or we'll let people know that you gave us some good info. So there you go. And hey,
or leave a comment if you're watching this on the video segment. Make sure you hit that. Man, I never do this as good as my son does it, but click the bell, hit the subscribe button, notify all. That way, when we have more info on this, you will be one of the first people to know.
Absolutely, as long as YouTube does their job.
Right.
Yeah. So what else do we have?
Well, you want to get into this? You go, girl. What do you want to do next here?
Well, let's just talk real quick about a couple of sales that occurred recently at Barrett Jackson.
All right.
And we won't spend too much time on this, but as you guys know, every year Barrett Jackson has an auction and in Scottsdale, which I'm disappointed because of COVID. I had an in to be able to go to that this year, and because of COVID, unable to travel. But there were a couple of vehicles of notoriety that went for a lot of money, and typically, numbered vehicles, when you're the first one off the assembly line, the first production vehicle, and the numbers are what they are, VIN 001. Like in the case of the Hummer. The Hummer EV pickup hasn't even been built yet, but it went at Barrett-Jackson for $2.5 million.
Oh boy,
the buyer, that's a lot of money.
I mean, I guess I'm okay with that coming out of GM. You know, some of those stuff like we were talking about recently with Lordstown and, you know, even Nikola, where people, there's no way I would do it from a manufacturer like that. I wouldn't even do it on a Rivian, and they've got, you know, production information. I mean, they're tweeting out videos all the time of them on test drives, but I guess it's pretty much a sure thing with GM, right? I mean,
yeah, it's happening, man. I mean, I'm really interested in seeing what this thing is going to be looking like in person.
And that will be, correct me if I'm wrong here, but historically significant because it's the first all-electric truck to come out of the General Motors family, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
And what's cool about this, and as you all well know, Barrett-Jackson is huge into arranging proceeds going to specific causes, and this one is really a good cause. So first of all, the buyer, she does not give her name, and they're not going to give her name. She'll receive the vehicle with VIN 001 when it rolls off the assembly line at Factory Zero, is what they call it in Detroit, and that's the Hamtramck plant this fall. The proceeds are going to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. It's a nonprofit that honors firefighter Stephen Siller, who died on September 11, 2001. What this group does is they help injured military and first responders and the families of those who died in the line of duty. So I commend Barrett-Jackson and GM for stepping up, and this lady that purchased this for stepping up and contributing to that cause. So it didn't end there. It did not end there. What else did they auction off, Keith?
Well, you're going to want to talk about that Bronco, and I'm going to mention before we get to that the Ford family, I believe it was at the same auction, unloaded one of their family-owned, meaning the Ford family had this in their collection, one of their old vintage Ford station wagons.
Right.
And it was kind of a dud. Like, it didn't bring what I think everybody expected. But the Bronco, so here we go, like, car that's been around, vintage, owned by the Ford family for, you know, I don't know how many decades, lots, or brand new, shiny, whatever that, you know, in the case of the Hummer hasn't even been built yet. In the case of this Bronco, I believe it was actually, you know, it was ready to be sold. But yeah, one of the new Broncos, right?
Yeah, it's VIN 001 as well, as a 2021 Bronco two-door. That money will go to the National Forest Foundation and Outward Bound. That one went for $1.075 million, which GM's got to be poking their chest out at that. Ha ha, we got more than you.
Right. Well, and you know what? Good for Barrett-Jackson to do this and drive that much revenue to charities. And we've had some dealings with those guys, and they do seem to be really, really good at what they do.
Right.
And they are well known for that. I just would this have happened 15 years ago, Jay?
No. No, we've
car number
got
one. Who cares?
Yeah, we've got such a shift now. It's but these are unique vehicles. Again, this is the first edition of.
Well,
you know.
Yeah.
And by the way, speaking of.
Go ahead.
By the way, speaking of that, let me tell you what it was. It was a fully loaded first edition model in the exclusive lightning blue paint. Has navy pure leather trim seats. Has a 2.7 liter V6 EcoBoost. Connected to, unfortunately, a 10-speed automatic transmission.
There you go.
Womp, womp, womp.
Yeah, well, you got to get the, here, there you go. Yeah, because if you want the V6, you got to go with an automatic, as we've learned. So you're not going to get a manual transmission right now in a 6.
One more went that day or over the weekend. 001 VIN as well. It was the 2021 Ram 1500 TRX Launch Edition. It only sold for $410,000, but all the proceeds there went to the United Way for Southeastern Michigan. Also on Friday, $500,000 was raised to benefit Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation with the sale of a 2021 Ford Mustang Mach 1 Fastback VIN 001.
There you go. So, now those TRX, they're out. Like we saw one the other day, and that is a
cool,
good looking truck. So that
it is, man. I've seen
one was
as well.
held back a little bit to auction a little later because you can actually go. You can put your order in right now and take delivery pretty quickly on one of those.
Right.
And they are really, really aggressive, good looking Ram truck. I mean, it's very different than the rest of the your typical Ram pickup truck.
I like them. I do. Of course,
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Just because I'm me and I can't leave this alone.
Okay.
I think it's probably better that these VIN 001s go to a museum somewhere, which clearly is what's going to happen in these cases. Because, Jay, how many times have you gotten it perfectly the first time you've done something? Right? Like, here, let me refine that question a little bit. You've worked on cars before, right? You've turned wrenches.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know how to change brake pads, right?
Sure.
You know how to turn rotors, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I am a car guy. That's what it says right here, dude.
Yeah, right. Okay. First time that you do that with a model that you haven't seen or touched before,
right?
Is it going to be your best?
No. You can try your best, but there's going to be something that...
There's always a learning experience that
absolutely,
you come back and do better the next time.
Absolutely, and you'll do it best next time. As technicians, that's what we do. We learn as we go.
I'm thinking these first few rolling off the assembly line, I don't know, man. I know they train them in advance. You guys are going to point that out to me and all that. But, I have family that put these cars together, assembled these and trucks. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying it's a good thing those are going to probably end up in a museum. That's all. I'll leave it alone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't disagree with the fact that, given the human element, you're going to have that happen. And, unfortunately, we do have statistical processing controls in place to prevent that from happening. But, there are people that are monitoring those statistical process controls, and sometimes things get by. And I've been in manufacturing a lot in my life, and I can tell you that there is probably not any production run that there isn't some issue. There always is. That's just the way it goes. Trust me when I tell you this. So you bring up a good point, no doubt about it. So there you go, guys. Good causes. VIN 0001 or 001 for all those vehicles, and good causes, and good for Barrett Jackson for doing all that stuff. So. All right, so where are we going next, man?
You go.
I think this is on you, isn't it?
You're on a roll. Nah, I just sit here and push buttons. Pick the next one.
What kind of a roll am I on? Ciabatta or let's go to So we are excited about this particular one. Keith found this. I didn't. I read it. And I'm like, wow, man. See, this is what companies should be doing. And we're going to go back and take you back again to when Keith and I were at the last SEMA show that you could be there in person. And everywhere you turned, there was some sort of overlanding type experience set up in the halls.
Yep.
Whether it be Jeep, Ford, GM, it just didn't matter. Rooftop tents, racking systems for overlanding, all of those things were heavy at that show. And we have been waiting for Rivian to unveil in production the new truck that's coming out, and it looks like they're getting closer and closer. But they made a really, really, really cool. We can't confirm this, but it looks like this is what's going to happen. It looks like both parties are committed to this, just based on the images that we've seen, and the fact that it is the CEO of Rivian that happens
RJ,
to be that happens to be the one revealing this information. So take it away, Keith. What do we have for our fans out there? What can they expect from these guys?
So here's what we know. Okay, I'll help you put the pieces together. Now, Jay, if you're not following he's the, I don't know how to say his last, Scaringe? RJ Scaringe?
Scaringe, yes, yeah. Scaringe.
If you're not following him on Twitter, which we are, and by the way, you can follow us on Twitter at The Counter Show. He's got an interesting. Rivian is very good at marketing. They almost remind me of Microsoft in their attempts to get there first. There's a lot of EV competition right now on the truck side. Ford's working on one. We were just talking about the Hummer in a previous segment.
Right.
There's Lordstown is working on one. Nikola was partnered with GM on a Badger product. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but there's a lot of competition in the electric truck market, okay?
There sure is.
Rivian has a partnership with Amazon to build vans, but they seem to be doing a very good job of getting people's attention on the marketing level. And so what RJ is out here doing is he's he goes out with his, and this is kind of funny, like he posted a video from, I guess it was last weekend, and he said, hey, it's a Sunday morning. I'm out. We're road testing. And you could see, like, it was one of the R1Ts. It was their truck.
Right.
And then they flip the camera to the back seat, and his two little boys are in the back seat, and his wife's in the middle, and they're climbing up some mountain, and there's snow up there. And, everybody's just he's just out with his family. Like, he's involved in the R&D process. He's using it with his family. Why not, right?
Absolutely. And I think that sends a very, very strong message to potential buyers.
Sure.
That he's doing this. This is, and it just makes sense.
So over the weekend, apparently he tweeted he was camping in front of his house, and he got his kids, and it looks like his wife's in there too. And they have a rooftop. Now, we've talked about the rooftop tents before. This one actually sits on the top of the bed, not on the top of the truck roof. But they do have a model that Jay and I looked at the pre-order on it, where you can buy the camp kitchen. It slides out in the truck, so it goes well.
Right.
It appears that Yakima has partnered with Rivian, and they are going to make a tent, a rooftop tent, finger quotes there, right? It fits over the bed, made for the Rivian, customized to fit. Both logos are on the tent that he took pictures of and tweeted with his family in it.
Yep.
The Rivian logo and the Yakima logo. Now, Yakima, of course, named after that town in Washington, which unfortunately I know all too well because I was stranded there.
You'll have to go way back for that podcast on your trailer problem that you had.
And to the dude that stole my trailer.
Yeah.
One day.
Yeah.
One day.
So hey, speaking of the Yakima and the Rivian, the commitment to each other, and you had the camp kitchen, right? Are you seeing what I'm seeing?
Well, they know that there's... Okay, so you started talking about this at the beginning of the segment, this Overland crowd. Rivian has clearly identified that there is a good fit in their customer base to appeal their product to the Overland crowd, right?
Yeah,
it
makes complete sense.
Clearly making an effort to focus on that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a vehicle... I mean, if you're going to be an all electric truck, and you've got the competition around you, and you see what everybody else is using their trucks for,
right?
I mean, you got to have purpose, man.
Right.
So why not just get right into it? And they've done it. And one of the images, if you look on the right side of the vehicle, behind the right rear passenger, you'll see
it's got the camp. Yeah,
it's got the camp kitchen. It's there. Yep.
Now, they do not show that on their website. So when you go and you order a truck, or you pre-order, and you do the customizer and you choose that camp kitchen option, it will not show you the passenger side of the vehicle where they're little cut. You can see there's an extra panel right there that slides out. On this one, it's right there. It is right there.
Yep. So the collaboration, it really does make a lot of sense. I mean, Yakima is synonymous with racks to support all their outdoor stuff, and they do stuff for snowboarding, fishing, and all that sort of stuff. So for them to work with a young automaker like this, a startup automaker like this, could be a good fit for them, man. I think if they're the first going in after these guys, I think that it sets the bar for even their competition in that area. So, but what they're saying here is that Rivian's R1T and R1S have added features that fit the same market as the Yakima rooftop tent. So they're saying also the automaker looks to deliver the first vehicle soon, and the customers will immediately start taking them out into the wild.
June
now,
is, yeah.
Yeah. So, and that makes sense, man. It makes total sense that they're doing this now, because if you're in the spring, I mean, we've got, I mean, not only to mention just yourself, Keith, I mean, you're outdoorsy, you like RVing. I have several friends in this area that they do a lot of rooftop camping, and they love it. And I think it's, and again, back to that SEMA show, that's all you saw were rooftop tents and racking. So I think it's a really wise decision that they have partnered up. If this does indeed come to fruition, that they partnered up with these guys, I'm excited to see what this thing is going to be like.
And again, clearly, I mean, just, if you follow RJ on Twitter at all, like he's even got the R1S, which is their SUV, and he'll post little things like, "Hey, we're ready to go camping in one," right? Like they're focused on that camping crowd. Now, while we're on the subject of Rivian, and before we put this one to bed, I'm going to add one other thing. So, for those of you that have not subscribed to the podcast or our video channel over on YouTube, if this is your first time checking us out, welcome. Thank you for checking us out. Please hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment if you'd like. Let us know what you'd like to see in the future. You can subscribe to our podcast, the audio podcast, over on our website at partscounterguru.com. Just click on the podcast tab near the top, and it'll take you right to all the platforms out there. You just pick your favorite one.
That's it.
And I say that for this reason, because there's a podcast back there about 6 months where we did a Rivian pre-order, and we went through all the options available, and we released a video on it as well. Okay, and if you remember, Jay, Rivian said our sales process, our buying process is going to be different. It's going to be great, and they didn't go into why. And I think I jumped on that, and I'm like, yeah, but you're sort of telling people it's going to be unique, but you're not really telling them how it's going to be unique, and what is all that? Do you remember that?
I do.
Okay,
recall it very well. Yeah.
So here is what I know now that Rivian has announced about that process. They announced the other day, middle of March, say hello to the team that will make owning a Rivian something truly unique. Every Rivian owner will be paired with a personal, dedicated Rivian guide.
Right.
Your single point of contact for all things Rivian. Okay? And they've got more info over on their website. But basically, that last sentence is what made it. Because, I'm reading that and I'm like, well, that's just a salesperson. It's just semantics, right? That's an Apple trick, right?
No, this is somebody who knows the product.
Single point of contact, all things Rivian. So if you have any questions in the buying process, or apparently the owner, because he did use the term every Rivian owner, right? You go to that single point of contact.
Right. This will be interesting how they pull this off with servicing, and
it's almost a valet, right? You have your concierge, right?
It is, and I think I had heard somewhere where they're going to be partnering up with specific dealers, big groups, auto groups,
right,
to help them achieve this, because they have to have locations to meet these people. But I had heard that they may be even just coming right to your house, man.
Right. Well, we still don't know what the delivery process is going to look like, but we're one step closer to.
We sure are.
Their sales process exposed.
So they're saying mid-June, early June?
I read June. I read, actually on RJ's Twitter feed, I read that production begins in June.
Okay, well, stay tuned, guys.
That's on the trucks. That's on the trucks.
The Amazon
vans, they're already in production.
Yeah, they're out there, yeah. making weird sounds. And that's not on Rivian, by the way. That's something that Amazon wanted. And if you can go back to one of our other podcasts about that or video segments. So, yeah,
I'd be fine with that,
Yeah,
or maybe
have a problem with it.
Yeah, maybe
or
a little
George Jetson. Maybe a little George Jetson.
Oh, you know what would be the absolute best?
What?
I know you love that George Jetson, right?
I do, man.
What about like just a foghorn? What about like you just pull through the neighborhood and you get, hey, my stuff's here, right? Like, I guess that'd be too annoying. I don't know.
Oh no, you've been to hockey games, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Right. So how about when they score a goal?
Right. Well, that's the point.
Right.
Your stuff has you won. Right?
It's arrived. Yeah, you win.
Yeah, I don't
it's
know.
arrived. Yeah.
That's why you don't leave me in charge of stuff like this, man.
All right. Well, let's stay on the subject of buying vehicles. Man, I tell you, what we're about to talk about smells all over to me. I don't know, man. I really don't know how much I agree with this. But we'll see. Keith, what's your sense on this? Let's get people into this. So,
all right. So now this is going to come as a surprise to you, Jay, and if far be it from me, who usually I'm the first of the two of us that will step into controversy, right? Mm-hmm. I'm usually the guy that if you hang it out there, I'm going to go after that carrot on a stick. But
right,
I'm concerned about this, okay? But I want everyone to know, I want our audience to know that I am not presenting this as a boy, I got to be careful here. So we think this is what Nissan is doing, okay? It seems like it's a bad idea, and we'll get into what it is in just a minute.
If you're an economist, you would say it was, yes.
But I also know that there are probably details in this that we don't have. And so that's the part right there that I'm just going to caution everybody. We don't have the 100% full story here. We have some pieces, okay?
We do.
And look, as proof that we are Nissan fans, we just finished a segment on this podcast earlier, a couple segments back, on the Z, okay?
Right.
I've owned a Z. We've both owned Nissans. We're Nissan fans. This is not.
Check out our Frontier Pathfinder video we shot from a few
over on YouTube.
Few podcasts back. Go to youtube.com/Parts Counter Gurus. Subscribe while you're there and check that video out. Which, by the way, that video has really got some traction. So.
Right. So, and I say this all the time, and it's like, the coach thing, right? Or, what I say to my kid, like, I'm hard on you because I expect more from you, because I want the best from you. I say it about Apple all the time. That's why I'm busting Apple's chops all the time, right? Because they can do better. They're capable of better.
Love, man.
So the thing with Nissan is, we know, we've joked about it, they've been in trouble for a while. Ever since their leader, their former head escaped in a cello case or whatever.
Oh, right.
Crossing borders. But there is apparently some subprime lending going on in the Nissan organization. And those of you, first of all, you hear that word and you just think back to the recession of 2008. And we know in the housing market, that's what helped cater to the collapse of the economy. Now, I'm no economist, okay? I'm not a financial expert. I'm not trying to be. I'm just, in layman's terms, going to kind of oversimplify this a little bit and say basically what it looks like. Again, it appears on the surface what Nissan is trying to do here, and I'm getting some of my information from Jalopnik, which right there, I need a little bit more information. But they are trying to sell their vehicles to people that really, from a financial standpoint, should not be approved credit-wise to buy a vehicle. They're not able to get them approved through standard financing channels, through traditional banks or Nissan Motor Finance or whatever it is. So they are working with some third-party lending partners, and basically that lending partner will loan the money to the buyer and take on some of the responsibility for the debt should that buyer fall through, should that buyer be unable to fulfill their payments, right?
Right. And it's kind of a, look, we've fallen on desperate times now. The timing of this bothers me if this is definitely what's going to happen, because, they're rolling out stimulus checks. And
right. So why are we sending people money if things are fine? Right.
That's where I'm going with this, is that it's a baiting. And it bothers me because I'm not real sure of the motivation here.
Well, that part's clear. They need to sell cars, and they'll do.
Well, I know that,
and they're willing to take higher risks.
But the tactics that go in with subprime lending,
right?
If you look back in history of how those things happen, there are people's lives that have been ruined because of the subprime lending practices, and their credit history. If there are stipulations within these subprime lending practices that can really hurt you, so you have to be very careful. I know it's attractive. These folks wouldn't lend me money.
If you make $300 a week, you can get a car. Come see me down at the old. Yeah, I know.
Exactly. Which, by the way, Cars Direct reported it on this as well. And that's. They're a reliable source as well. So we don't know. We're just basing this on what we're seeing being reported.
So dealers in the Nissan organization, now this launched on March 16th of 2021. If they can't get their potential buyer approved through their traditional financing channels, and they have some that are banks, and they have some that's Nissan, Nissan corporate lending or whatever.
It's called Signature Access Subprime Dual Pass-Through Program, by the way.
That's what they're calling the program.
That's actually what they're calling it.
And the dealers can then leverage that program, and they can send those credit applications out to lenders in that subprime dual pass-through program.
And that's where one of the problems begins, Keith.
Yeah, and as far as Nissan's concerned, on the surface, hey, we're making sales, right? We're hitting our numbers, whatever.
That's right.
First of all, it's a big commentary on if Nissan is willing to take this risk, the situation that they are in as a company right now, and it ain't good, okay? Because I really don't see a company that's stable doing this right now. GM had a tough year last year. They lost a lot of money. They're not doing this as far as I know. Ford's not doing it.
There's a lot of incentives out there. There's some really good deals out there.
Toyota's not doing it.
Nope.
Right? Man, I don't.
So, to give you a little bit more background on it, folks, and this is according to these sources, they decided to go with a couple that do not have a really good track record with the Better Business Bureau.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. That's when I learned of this, I thought, gosh, man, I just don't, why, man? Nissan is really on a roll right now with bringing back some really great vehicles.
So star ratings at like BBB rankings is, out of 5, I think it's out of 5 stars. They're both stars. In the 1.0 something.
Yeah,
right?
At best, just look, a little over 1 star.
Keep in mind that most of the people that fill out surveys and complete reviews are people that have had a bad experience, right? Meaning the people with the good experiences don't take the time to. That's just kind of the way we are as humans. They don't leave positive feedback. Some do, but I think the ratio of people that are motivated to complete follow-ups, it's usually those that have a complaint. So understand that you have to be a little bit objective with this. That said, the BBB is ridiculously easy to dismiss a BBB complaint. And let me give you an example. I had a Toyota 4Runner. I had a Toyota dealership in the town that I lived in that I had somebody hit it, and I had to have a part of it repainted. And I pulled the thing off the lot, and it was like orange peel, paint overspray on the tires. Just like, did a 12-year-old, did you give him your Binks gun and let him go to town, right?
Yeah.
So I took it back. They agreed that it wasn't, I don't even know how their quality control passed it out. Well, Jay, that went on 4 times. And by the 4th time that I took it back and there was still orange peel in the paint and there was still overspray on the tires, I was like, we're done, dudes. I don't continually have time to keep bringing you my vehicle and be without a car. So I sent a letter to the BBB. Well, like they just sent some nonsense response back that said, we want what the customer wants and we're happy to continue to work with them until it's resolved. Well, that's great. That's whatever, right?
Sure.
And the BBB went away. So to get yourself into a 1-star rating with the BBB, that takes some work. That's not you pissed off a couple customers.
You got some explaining to do, man. I mean, there's just there's a number of reasons why. A couple of these lenders. Let's see here. Complaints are wide-ranging, they say, from payments being posted to customer accounts late, and having that negatively impact their credit score, not through their own doing. These are the lenders posting these late, and not the consumer.
Yeah.
And
there's standards that they have to follow to post those payments that apparently they're not.
Absolutely. Right? And then one of the sketchiest things is like requiring a double payment at the end of a loan if the last payment is lower than the regular payment amount. I mean, complaints over things like overpayments not being returned, processing auto pay payments early and charging a daily late fee on payments that were mailed on time. That just doesn't paint a pretty picture for these individual companies.
Yeah, the subprime lending. Yeah, it's not good, man. They don't have a good reputation. Now, to be fair, there is a reason that most traditional lending institutions won't touch these customers. There are reasons for that. It's not because they're that old banker's mean, right? It's because they're in most cases. Credit is earned, right? And there are marks on these people's credit that they have earned. Right. I'm not saying things can't happen that aren't your fault. I'm just saying in general, the majority of these people have bad credit for a legitimate reason. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you've got to expect that the process of bill collecting with those folks is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit tougher.
Sure it would be. Yeah, absolutely.
And you're going to be a little bit more difficult to deal with, but
how about just don't sell a car to somebody that can't really afford it? Sometimes you got to think for them, man. I mean, I'm again, this is very relatable to the housing issue that we had back in 2008 when the market just completely crashed because they were loaning money to people and approving loans for homes that people just had no business buying. I mean, we're talking, a $500,000 homes where people couldn't afford a $150,000 home, and they're getting the loans for them. And I remember during that time frame, my wife and I going out for a loan and we being approved for that up to that ceiling. You're approved up to. Right? And I'm looking at them going, okay, yeah, and who's going to pay for that?
Right.
I know I'm approved, but who's going to pay for that? Because I can't. I'm a smart guy. I know how much money I make. I don't know where you're coming up with your math, but that doesn't work into my budget. Sadly,
my favorite was the stated income. It's like, no, I don't really want anybody looking into my tax returns. Can we just do stated income? And they're like, sure. Tell us what you make.
Two of the biggest purchases that you'll ever make in your life are going to be an automobile and a home, and those purchases are full of emotion, and you dangle a carrot in front of somebody's face that really wants that car, and we're going to give you the money for it, man, but you know what? If you miss one payment, we're going to cut your leg off. It's like people they don't think sometimes. So I think there is some unfair practices with this, and I personally would like to see where this goes and revisit this at some point, but I don't know, man. I don't know if it's a smart move for Nissan here to allow that to happen. Now, they are these an authorized? Are they
corporate program?
Corporate program.
Dealers have access to that channel according to the information that we have.
In other words, the Nissan lending channels are saying, no, we're not going to borrow, or we're not going to allow these folks to borrow the money for this car. However, here's a program we have. You're on your way. Go ahead. And we authorize that to be done. So it's got their fingerprints on it, man.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how does that make you feel? I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean, I can't be the only one that looks at this and goes,
nothing in this is good from my perspective. And I hope you guys that are longtime fans of the show, that have seen more than a couple episodes or listened to more than a few, I can hear it. Jay, I sound probably very different right now in this segment that we're talking about than I think I probably ever have on this program. Would you picking up what I'm laying down? Like, I'm not, this isn't, I'm really worried. Like, this is it. Okay. So again, back to kind of beginning of the podcast, here in the United States, as the auto industry goes, so typically does our economy. Not all. I'm not saying it's a sure thing. I'm saying historically speaking, that has been the case. That's why people watch car sale numbers. There are so many red flags in this.
Oh, absolutely.
I hate to be Debbie Downer. You know, yeah.
Well, and again, we are just observers, and we like getting information out. So like to throw that disclaimer out there. If you want to go buy a vehicle and you know that you can afford it under those circumstances, by all means do it. But just understand that, as with any loan, there are going to be things that can come back on you if it's not done appropriately, and just be careful. Now, if you do go through one of these subprime lending agencies, watch your transactions. Just make sure. Just cross your T's and dot your I's, because that's what it will take maybe. If these guys have this low of a rating through the Better Business Bureau, then just know what you're getting into. So, I don't know, man. Think it's got some guy back there cracking his knuckles waiting?
Honestly, I mean, we joke about that, but I don't think we're far from it, you know?
No. So, I mean, it almost sounds like these guys, the repo practices that occur with some of these too. That's scary, man. Just you wake up one morning, you go outside, and you miss a payment, and your vehicle's gone. But you signed the dotted line. You signed it, so they're bound legally to the contract, as you are. So, until otherwise proven guilty for otherwise. So, there you have it. So, wow, just this will be interesting, and I want to come back to it, because I kind of think that maybe over time this may not occur, and I'm just going to put that out there. My thoughts that hopefully the wiser minds will prevail,
right?
And because there's nobody else out there in the industry doing this right now, and it could come across as ugly. And I don't think Nissan really needs this right now. They're really on a roll with what they're doing. So that's all I have to say about it.
All right, so
be careful, folks.
I was gonna say, we're kind of getting close to the end of our time here. I just can't end on that. It's too depressing. So let's go with something a little fun here, okay? So here I've got a good one for us to end the program on. I'm gonna have a little bit of fun with this because I can't help it. But it is heavily rumored that Corvette, or I guess General Motors, is working on a Stingray SUV. Now, before you freak out and talk about, and I can understand why you might think, hey, that's dumb, okay? I might be inclined to agree with you, but I want you to think for just a minute about the Porsche Cayenne, the Lamborghini's got one. The name escapes me right now, but I saw one on the road the other day. The Urus. My apologies.
Urus, yeah, Urus. Not Uranus, but Urus.
Urus. I mean, certainly Mustang with their Mach-E.
Right. This is not far-fetched.
It's being done, okay? And the reason it's being done is because there are companies that are seeing success in it, in their performance line. And these really aren't SUVs, they're crossovers, because an SUV has to be built, as we've established, on a truck platform. These are not, right?
Right. It's not stepping on your Corvette namesake. It's it's a different direction, just like what you said with the Ford Mach-E. They call it a Mach-E.
Right.
And it is different than the Mustang. So
basically, it's been kicked around for a long time, but it sounds like they're getting a little bit more serious about it.
Mm-hmm.
And we know this because GM is doing interviews where they're commenting on it.
Right. They had a press conference recently too, and they saw an unidentified crossover SUV in the background. Now that could have been a Lyriq, Cadillac Lyriq. It could have been a number of those crossovers that they're working on, but it looked similar to one of the renderings that we've seen here. And it's actually cool looking, man. The rendering, it's similar to the Mach-E.
Yeah, I don't know. I understand why they would use the Corvette name because it would lend credibility to sales. It would get them sales. But the problem that I have with that is that's an icon, and it was intended for something that this ain't, right?
Right.
And it bothers me a little bit to see them use the name to do it. Now, look, like back to that Lamborghini, they didn't call it, a Gallardo or, they didn't use an existing Lamborghini model to borrow the name from. They gave it its own name, right?
Right. That's exactly right. And I think that will happen here as well. But, it's not anything new spinning off a model into a brand, by the way. It could be a brand for GM, like you were, Ram with, Dodge with the Ram, Hyundai with Genesis, that sort of stuff. Now, in this same segment, though, GM denies that plan, but I don't believe that.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really start talking about it until because then your competitor, there's just a whole list of reasons why that's a bad idea.
And I tell you what, will it sell? Well, just ask Porsche. Just ask Lamborghini. They'll tell you. I mean, again, like you said, how many Porsche Cayennes have you seen around?
Right.
And the fact that we're going all electric on the GM side, and they've got a all electric Hummer now that's near production, getting auctioned off at Barrett-Jackson for record dollars. I think there's some excitement around vehicles of this type.
Right.
We keep looking for the Mach-E out here on the showroom floor. I can't wait to see one because I want to go drive one. I told you way back when we podcasted about that I was ready to go consider buying one, man. So we'll see. Now, this thing right here, man, I bet you it carry a hefty price though, Keith, just because of what it is.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to use that Corvette name and not have it be, anywhere near. It's got to be. I mean, if the Hummer EV's over 100,000, I mean, this thing. Yeah, I just don't see it being under 100K, but yeah.
No, especially if it comes with all the technology that Hummer comes with. Now, granted, this would not be what the Hummer is, but still, to make electrification work across your company, period, you're going to be using similar platforms to make that work, which makes complete sense, and that's the Ultium battery platform that they have been working on hard. Makes sense. Why not? And I bet the damn thing will be fast. They can tweak these things to get some serious horsepower out of them. So it's an exciting topic to talk about. Hey, look, man, we when the C8 came out, the new mid-engine, it was met with a lot of controversy. But then as people started seeing these things show up and owners started taking possession, then you really started to see some of them go, oh, wow, this is all right. This is pretty good. I think that the mid-engine Vet was a great move for GM. I think they had to go there. So what's next? All-electric SUV? Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I think so.
Pretty bold, don't you think?
Yep.
So, awesome. So, hey, everybody, thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed what you've listened to and or watched, don't forget to subscribe. Go to youtube.com/Parts Counter Gurus and hit that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. Ring the bell. Hit that notification bell up there. That way you are notified every time a video like this comes out. If you just prefer the audio podcast only, go to partscounterguru.com and go to the podcast link, and you can catch us on just about every platform out there. We do mention things on this podcast, and you will find a mention on the podcast tab where you can purchase those things. But you can also do your own shopping. If you're on our site and you feel like you need to buy something through Amazon, you can click up that icon up in the upper right-hand corner and go shopping. That helps us out. We appreciate all of the assistance that gives to us. We have no idea what you're buying, who you are, or anything like that, but we do get a little bit of love from that, and we'd like to continue doing what we're doing. So you are supporting us and supporting the show by doing a little shopping there. So thank you in advance if you attempt to go over and do that. So social media, we're on Facebook.com /Parts Counter Gurus. We're on Instagram.com /The Parts Counter Gurus. We're also over on Twitter, and our handle is @TheCounterShow. And like us, follow us, share us, do whatever you want, and just keep coming back. We really appreciate it. So what else you got, man?
That's it, man. Thanks, Jay.
Wow. What a good show.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it, man.
Yeah. It was a little different. I got a little nervous. I don't think I've ever gotten nervous. Not nervous like, oh, I'm being recorded, but nervous for the auto industry on the podcast.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some meat on the bone here, my friend. Some meat on the bone here. So now you're making me hungry. So I guess until next time, everybody, thank you so much for your comments on our YouTube page. Thank you for subscribing over there. Check us out on our podcast for those of you that are already subscribed. We appreciate that very much. Thank you. If you haven't, partscounterguru.com, as Jay said, it's the best place to find us. So for my podcasting partner, Jay, over there, I'm Keith. Live long and prosper. See you, everybody. Take care. Hey, everybody. Welcome into the podcast. I am Jay, and that is my co-host, Keith, there. How are you this morning, my friend?
Hey, man, when does that Unplugged album come out?
Oh, man, you didn't just do that. Oh, oops.
Sorry. That's gonna be great in post when I beep it out. Sorry, now you know what I was laughing about.
Now I do.
I had to get that out of my system.
No worries. Trust me. I don't know who all's listening in that regard, but anyway. Okay, so
here, let's start over.
Really?
Well, not the whole thing, just the welcome in. All right.
Okay. All right. So.